Barbecue. Copyright Mikayla Matthews, 2010. Barbecue. Summer, 1998. Billy, Kata, dinner time. Terry Ernest called to her kids from the kitchen door one evening. Billy was 10, a clever boy who was into normal boy stuff. But his favorite pastime was reading. How he loved a good mystery or true crime novel. And although his parents did not truly approve, they often allowed him to stay up late Thursday nights to watch his favorite weekly crime dramas on TV. The ones he enjoyed most were the ones that involved the most obscure clues and unexpected endings. His sister, Kata, was 5. She was a quiet, artistic child who was as girly as they come. Pretty dresses, Barbies, and Hello Kitty cartoons. She was the polar opposite of her brother. The two kids ran up to the table and sat down across from each other. Kata fumbled with her chair, and her mother helped her, pushing the chair closer to the table once her daughter was seated. Their father, Stan, was already seated, folding up his paper to give his full attention to his family. Billy glanced over the spread of covered dishes before him. "What are we having?" he asked his mom. "Burgers, pork chops, mac and cheese, applesauce, and broccoli," his mother replied sweetly. "You like those, don't you?" "Yeah," Billy said, nodding. "Yeah," Kata said, miming her brother. "But Daddy doesn't like broccoli." "That's right, honey," Terry said. "That's why he's having peas." She looked at her husband, smiling as she undid her apron. "You like peas, right, dear?" "Love 'em," Stan answered. He rubbed his hands together, anxious to get started. He paused, looking at his pretty, youthful wife. "Everything okay, Stan?" his wife asked. He stared at her a moment longer, then said, "Yes, you are just so beautiful." Terry blushed and took her seat. "Thank you, dear." "Mommy's but a fool," Kata said suddenly. Stan looked at his little girl, leaning in close. "Yes, she is, honey, and so are you." He reached down to tickle her on the side of her belly, and she giggled out loud. Billy and Terry laughed too. They were the perfect family. Ward and Joan Cleaver would be proud. Stan spoke again as he opened his napkin and placed it on his lap. "Everyone's allowed to not like one vegetable. It's in the rule book. Your mother doesn't like carrots." Kata looked at her mother as her plate was filled with all the portions she could handle. "Why not, Mommy?" she asked. "Because," Terry said, smiling, "if I eat all the carrots, the Easter Bunny will starve, and then he can't bring you candy and eggs on Easter." It was a lie, of course, and everyone but Kata understood this. Terry simply had a revulsion toward carrots. She had been force-fed them as a child, and ever since then the mere smell of them nauseated her. It was why she and Stan never made their kids eat anything they did not enjoy eating. She refused to treat her children as she had been in the past. Kata giggled and looked at her brother, who smiled and played along. The 4-person family began eating. Kata dipped bite after succulent bite of pork steak into a puddle of applesauce before shoving it into her mouth. "Kata, honey," Terry chided gently, "slow down. You'll get a sore belly." Billy, meanwhile, took his time with his cheeseburger, adding to it his favorite toppings: lettuce, tomato, ketchup, mayo, and pickles. Their parents carefully sliced into their pork chops, Stan taking bigger bites than his wife. He moaned. "That is one juicy chop." His wife smiled proudly. "Dad," Billy said in between chews. "Finish chewing. Then speak," his father said. Billy swallowed. "Dad, what other types of foods are there besides American?" Well, Stan started before wiping his face with his napkin. There's Mexican, which we all know gives you the farts. Billy and Kata laughed at the word farts. Their dad continued. Then there's curry, but I find it a little spicy for my palate. There's soul food, which tastes like fried chicken. Honey, Terry interjected. Stan smiled at his wife. There's Chinese, he continued, but it never quite fills you up. My favorite is ribs or steak. I like M with some fat on M, so they're nice and juicy. He leaned toward his son a little. Have you ever had sweetbreads? He asked. Billy looked at his mom, puzzled, then looked at his dad again. I don't think so. What are they? His dad whispered with a sly smile, brains. Billy gave him just the reaction he'd wanted. Really? Yep, Stan said. And the smarter they are, the better they taste. He winked at Billy, then let the comment stew in his son's brain for a moment. Finally, he blurted out, I'm kidding, son. Everyone laughed in relief. Even little Kata, who didn't fully comprehend the comment or its innuendo, but knew enough to know eating brains was icky. No, 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 her daddy said. They do have brains, but they get them from cows and sheep. They don't come from humans, and it doesn't matter how smart the dumb old animal is. But I thought only zombies ate brains, Billy commented. Before his father could offer a retort, his mother said, well, that's not entirely true. Some higher-class people think sweetbreads are a delicacy. Others think it makes you smarter if you eat them, but it really doesn't. Have you ever eaten brains, Daddy? Kata asked innocently. Terry broke in then, suggesting, let's talk about something else, shall we? And with that, the conversation died a pleasant death, and the four-person family finished their meal. Billy and his sister secretly vowed never to eat brains or sweetbreads, or whatever they were called, ever. After dinner, they all enjoyed the strawberry jello Terry had made a few hours earlier, complete with homemade whipped topping. That Saturday morning, Billy shoveled spoonful after spoonful of apple cinnamon flavored oatmeal into his mouth and belly. Slow down, honey, his mother gently scolded. You'll get indigestion. Learn to enjoy your food, and you'll appreciate it a whole lot more. But Billy couldn't slow down. He was used to his weekly routine. Each and every Saturday, Billy woke up early, showered, cleaned his room, made his bed. He knew that if he skipped straightening his room and bed, his mother would only hinder the progress of his day by making him stay home until it was done anyway, so he just woke up early enough to get the task done before breakfast. After that, he rushed downstairs, leaping over the last few steps, and hurried into the kitchen to eat. After breakfast, he would go to the library, as he did every Saturday, to spend at least 4 or 5 hours reading mysteries, checking the papers for the latest crime articles, or looking up true crime on the internet. He could not get enough, and Saturday mornings held the best opportunity for Billy to get a decent computer, when the library was not overrun with true geeks who hogged the computer labs all day long. He had to get there early each weekend, which was why he developed his routine. Slow down, his mother gently demanded again. But she was too late. Her son was stuffing the last bite of oatmeal into his mouth and washing it down with the last of his orange juice. He shoved his chair back and stood up. He slammed his empty glass down next to his plate and shrieked, "Bye. See ya," then bolted for the front door, snatching up his backpack on the way. "Be back by 1 or 2, his mom called after him. The neighborhood Barbeque is today. "Kay," Billy shouted as he yanked the door shut behind himself. Several hours passed, and the cart of books that needed to be returned was filling up for the second time, thanks to Billy's curious, devouring mind. The girl who worked each Saturday hated her shift, mostly because of the thankless manner in which the cart never seemed to be truly empty, and felt she would not have to work Saturdays in the first place if Billy Ernest did not come in. Billy didn't really notice her, but she had looked blonde hair and a bookish style to her. Her name was Jenny. In the smaller computer lab, Billy opened and closed more crime and murder websites than people might think existed. But it was 5 till 1, and he knew he had to finish up and leave for the day. The last window he had to close was for mysteries-r-us.net. He moved the cursor to the little X that would make the window disappear forever, but paused. The updated headline caught his attention. It read, "Cold case in small town reopened. Photo of killer cannibal revealed." Billy could not resist. It was the best headline he had seen all day. He scrolled downward and began to read. Earlier that morning, after her son had left for the library and Kada had gone out to play, Terry Ernest had taken a load of clean laundry upstairs to the master bedroom. She did not see or hear the sliding glass door downstairs slide gently open. A man entered. He was tall, lean, and dressed casually. Once inside the Ernest's home, he donned a black ski mask to conceal everything but his eyes, then made his way upstairs. The article Billy read said the authorities the next county east of where Billy lived had a suspect in an older case where people were murdered, their remains apparently used as food for human consumption. Many of the female victims were assaulted in their own homes before they were killed. The suspect was now living within a 50-mile radius of Billy's family's home. At home, Terry hummed merrily as she folded clothes or hung them neatly on hangers in various closets. When she was finished, she picked up the empty basket from the floor and carried it to the hall closet. After putting it away, she returned to the master bedroom. On the website Billy was viewing, the words, "Click here to see a photo of the suspect," flashed inside a little red box beside the article he read from. He moved his cursor to that spot and clicked the mouse. At home, the intruder crept up behind Terry and grabbed one of her arms and covered her mouth with the other hand. He shoved her onto the bed where she tried to crawl away, and the stranger fought to keep her close. She screamed briefly until he covered her mouth again. Suddenly he went limp as a muffled ping echoed through the room. Blood sprayed from his mouth onto Terry's face before he fell like a wet noodle to the floor. When she looked up, Terry saw her husband standing there, a bloody aluminum baseball bat in his grip. Billy waited for the link to the photograph to open. Stan Ernest handed his wife the bat and asked, "Would you like to do the honors?" Terry smiled through the blood on her pretty face. She took the bat, stood, and then proceeded to beat the intruder to death with her weapon. When she was finished, her dress and skin were splattered with so much blood and fleshy bits, she was barely recognizable as her usual. Sweet, happy self. Terry dropped the bat onto the floor. She swept a rivulet of blood from her chin and sucked it into her lips. Her face lit up with excitement. "Honey, I think we've found a new recipe. It's sweeter. Better than the rest." Stan pulled the dead man's wallet from his back pocket and looked at his ID. He looked at his wife and smiled. He's a sex offender. Stan kissed his wife's bloody lips, then stuck out his tongue and licked her cheek. He smacked his lips playfully, then said, "I think we have something here." Terry stuck 2 of her fingers between her lips and licked them clean. Yummy, she cooed. Billy Ernest waited as patiently as he could for the website to wipe the photo he had been anticipating onto the screen in front of him. When it finally appeared, the image shocked him so intensely that he knocked over his chair. It was his father. A cold sweat washed over him as he scrambled for the door, but not before closing the internet window on the screen and erasing the site from the computer's history. "How much is that?" Terry asked her husband. "At least enough to get us through Thanksgiving, I would say. One more would get us through the holidays completely,"